Hello and welcome back to Down to the Tyre. Today I'm joined by Dom Shaw, who currently races for Team BRIT. After starting his career in radio-controlled cars, which he became a national champion in, he came across Team BRIT from a TV feature and began racing full-sized cars. In 2024 he competed for the first time, driving in Class 3 of the Britcar Trophy in the BMW 1 Series. He would go on to win this class, coming 9th in the overall standings. I caught up with Dom to talk all about his inspirational career so far and about the monumental season he's had in 2024. Enjoy. So Dom, I really want to go back to the start of your racing career, as you started with radio controlled cars, which you actually became a national champion in. How did you get started with that?
So when I was 9 years old, my dad for Christmas bought me a remote control car out of the box. And we started with, going up and down the street with it. And then after a while that got boring and we was like, we'll go to a track. So we found a local track, or what was local at the time, in Canterbury. Down at Barham, and we started doing club racing down there. And then that went into doing the British Remote Control Car Association Championships, to which in 2017, I believe, I managed to clinch the F2 stock championship.
That's so cool. And then obviously I know you saw Team BRIT on TV, which I mentioned in the intro. What happened in the time between winning that in 2017 and seeing Team BRIT on TV?
So I still do remote control car racing to this day. So that's never stopped me. But I saw Team BRIT on a feature on Formula One, and then followed them on social media from there. And then from that, I did a track day with them in 2021. And I enjoyed it so much when I was doing it. I asked if there was further space in that day so I could have some more laps. And it went really well. And the driver trainer at the time said, that's gone really, really well. Have you thought about joining the team? I was surprised by that because, you just didn't realize I was that good. I approached the team and unfortunately there wasn't space at the time. So I did some other driver training, and then September 23, I messaged the team. Well, I woke up one day and I thought, you know what? If I don't go racing now, when am I going to go racing? So no time like the present sort of thing. And there was availability. So I was like, okay, great. So yeah, it all happened very quickly. I messaged the team in September, got my yards in October. I met the team in November, got some protective racewear in December, and then signed the contract in January.
There we go. Easy as that. I
Yeah.
know, obviously, I've been following Team BRIT for a good few years now, but for anyone who's not familiar with them and kind of what they do, could you just give a bit of background?
Yeah, so Team BRIT are a team of all disabled racing drivers. So whether it's a physical disability or psychological, um, yeah, we show people that just because you're disabled doesn't mean you can't compete in motorsport. Um, yeah, and I drive with hand controls. So Team BRIT have made their own hand controls, where you've got where you would expect your gear changes to be, your flappy pedals. That's where our accelerator is. So our accelerator's on the right, and then we've got the brake on the left. And then by our thumbs is where we change gear. So we can gear up and gear down. So it doesn't put us at any disadvantage to any of our competitors because we don't have to take our hands off the wheel to control the car. So that's what gives us the level playing field that we need to compete.
That's amazing. And in terms of your own personal background, in terms of your own disability, how do you feel like the team has supported that? Because I imagine obviously different drivers with different disabilities need different support there. What do you think has really helped you to be able to compete on that level playing field?
So for me, I've got a spinal condition called spina, and I also have hydrocephalus. So yeah, the hand controls obviously assist me because I don't use my legs when in the car. I use the hand controls, and then they do data with you. So you've got a camera in the car where it's checking your onboards, and once you've done a few laps around the track, you'd come in and you'd assess how you've done, perhaps against another driver, so that you can see where you're braking compared to them, where you're turning in, all that sort of thing, and your apex speeds, all that sort of thing. So where you can improve as well, which really helps me. I've got short-term memory loss, so that's just part of the hydrocephalus. So going over things multiple times and doing multiple laps of practice obviously assists me with getting myself up to speed and on the pace as quickly as possible.
I was going to ask you about the different tracks and everything because I know you did your first track day at Donington Park, which any of my listeners will know I'm very biased towards because it's the closest circuit to me. Where I'm from in the Midlands, I any excuse to talk about Donington, I will. But I was curious to know what your kind of favourite circuits are, whether you have any that you're particularly loyal or biased to, or just any that you particularly enjoy driving.
So loyal and biased to it definitely has to be Brands Hatch. That is my local circuit, and I've done a few track days around there, so that's it's definitely a very good track. And Snetterton, surprisingly, was a very good track for me as well. I managed to get up onto the pace. I've never been there before competing there, but yeah, I managed to get up to speed very quickly there, and it was a nice, enjoyable circuit.
What do you think it is about a circuit that makes you particularly strong there? Like, are there any kind of characteristics of Snetterton that you think lend themselves well to your driving style?
It's quite a fast circuit.
Mm.
I quite like fast circuits. It's got some exciting bits where you're going under the bridge, and you go through the bomb hole, things like that, and then Coram, just holding on to the car as tight to the apex as possible while going as fast. That's probably one of my favourite corners is Coram. You're literally going right and just holding onto the car until you get to the apex of the next corner. And it's a fun track.
Absolutely. I've not actually personally visited any tracks in the UK except for Donington. But I always like, especially drivers who are racing primarily in the UK. I feel like everyone has different favourites, so I'm always really intrigued to hear the reasoning behind it. But obviously, Brands Hatch, as being a local circuit, I completely understand that bias with my own Donington biases. Isn't it must be nice. It kind of feels like your home race, doesn't it?
Yeah, not only that, with the Brands Indy track, you can sit anywhere around the circuit and see every corner, which makes it a really good track to visit. Yeah, you literally, I think there's one tree you can't see past for a split second, and that's it. And then every single corner you can see, so you can always watch the racing as it goes on.
That's so cool. See, I feel like that's kind of what Donington, I'm biased was it that's what it's lacking a bit because there's that big tree bit in the middle. And it kind of blocks your view of it if you're on one side or the other of it, which is a bit of a shame. So I have to add Brands Hatch to my list to visit for sure. I want to talk about this season because obviously this season was a very good one. um, Firstly, I want to introduce the Britcar Trophy. As a championship for those who maybe have not watched it before or those who are still kind of learning about the championship. Could you kind of explain the different classes that there are and then particularly focusing on the one that you raced in this year.
Yeah, so Britcar Trophy is made up of a qualifying session where you have to complete a minimum of 3 laps. Where it's an endurance championship, you may share the car with another driver. So each driver, if you've got a driver pairing, has to complete a minimum of 3 laps in quali. And then the races are made up of 2 races of 50 minutes. And then during those races, you've got one mandatory pit stop that's timed, depending on the performance of your car in your class. So if a car has a particular advantage over another car in the same class, that pit stop would be slightly longer than someone who's at a disadvantage. So their pit stop would be shorter. And the idea of that is obviously to bring the racing nice and close as possible and fair towards the end of the race. Yeah, so that's good fun. And then it was made up of class one, class two, and class three. So class one will be your fastest cars, where you've got your bigger Ginetta cars, your TCR cars, and faster BMWs. And then class two, again, slightly slower than class one. And then class three, the class that I competed in, again, less aero, slightly less grip, and slower cars as well.
In terms of within your class, obviously, for anyone who doesn't know, you won the class this year. If you're going to summarize the overall season, obviously, I imagine it's a pretty positive summary, but how would you kind of put it into words?
Yeah, unexpected. This was my rookie season, so I have never competed in a championship of racing before this season. So being able to win the championship with my teammates was totally unexpected. Very, very rewarding. And we won the last 2 rounds at Snet. We won our last 3 races, um, 4 overall. So yeah, we won the last round at Donington, and then we won both rounds at Snetterton. So it was very rewarding. A lot of hard work and time goes into it, definitely. But we came out with the right result.
I imagine it must be quite nice ending the season on a high like that, rather than say if you'd had the championship secured a few rounds earlier or like a few races earlier, and then like had a DNF or something in the last race. I imagine it's nice to finish it with that momentum, right?
Oh yes, definitely. It's like you say, with the momentum to then go into the next season. But no matter how long the season goes on for, you never want it to stop, and then it does, and it's like, ah, till next year now.
Yeah, what's your relationship like with your teammate? What's it like working so closely with another driver like that?
So I was lucky enough to have two teammates this year. So Caleb was in the car for the majority of the time, and Caleb was new to the team, as was I. So it was good to get to know him. And then the last round of the season at Snetterton, Bobby Trundley partnered me when Caleb moved up to a different class.
Was it like kind of getting used to the like working with different drivers like across different like across a different round? Did it take a bit of getting used to?
Yeah, I mean, we all have different driving styles. So looking at data, it's always good to see their driving style and see where the advantages of how they drive are and all that sort of thing to then incorporate that in my driving. To then obviously better myself, better my lap times, and become a faster teammate. So yeah, that definitely I definitely got to grips with that towards the end. They were really supportive as well. We were always looking to work together and support each other, which was really nice.
Yeah, what was kind of like when you were picking stuff from like, okay, I'm going to learn that from this teammate and that from this person? Like, what kind of things do you think you took from each of them? Like, is there anything that you've put into your driving style that you can kind of pinpoint? That's where I got that from, if that makes sense.
Um, well, Bobby is a very experienced racing driver, so especially with Bobby, he's got a he's a very fast driver, with an aggressive driving style. Where I was probably, well, a bit slower, and a bit tamer, shall we say. So I've definitely, once I'm sharing a car with him, definitely improved the my driving style with a bit more aggression, um, for sure. And then Caleb's got very good consistency. So he can do a lap time and he can do that lap time every single lap. So yeah, trying to obviously then match that consistency was something to take away from him as well.
Throughout the season, obviously, overall, it was very positive. But did you have any kind of moments where there were kind of lows during the year, any kind of struggles that you kind of faced throughout the season at one point or another, that kind of stand out as, not so great moments? And if so, how did you kind of work through them and overcome them to continue championship momentum?
Yeah, so unfortunately I got injured after the first round. So I had an incident in qualifying in my first ever qualifying. Um, and after the round finished, I realised that I'd actually damaged my shoulder. So I needed time to rehabilitate. And then once I'd rehabilitated the shoulder, I needed a couple of track days in which to bring myself back up to speed and get my confidence back. Um, just so that when I went back in the car, I made sure that I was up to speed and not slowing us down to the point where we wouldn't be able to win races.
I imagine confidence is a huge thing, especially when you're in your rookie season of any championship, let alone your rookie season, racing. How do you think, obviously coming back on that, what do you think were the biggest things that helped you gain that confidence? Do you think it was just getting out there and not letting yourself kind of dwell on it too much, almost like just getting straight back out there as soon as you could?
Yeah, getting straight back out there. I've got very good determination, and stubbornness, shall we say. So I've always wanted to be a racing driver. So I didn't want anything to stop me from doing what I had the opportunity to do. So I made sure that I brought myself up to speed as quickly as possible using the simulator at Team BRIT HQ, and then doing some track days and all that sort of thing to make sure that I was up to speed as quickly as possible.
That's really interesting about the simulator. I feel like obviously you see what's going on at the track, but what's it like being part of Team Brit away from the track? Like, what kind of support and facilities do you have access to from that connection there?
Yeah, so they've got a simulator that I can use, and also as well they can send you previous onboards from the car at different rounds so that you can learn the circuits. That's another thing, being a rookie, um, learning the layouts of the tracks and things like that is definitely one thing that you need to learn before you get there. So, like I say, onboards and the simulator were ways in which to get me up to speed as quickly as possible.
Yeah, that sounds. I know you mentioned memory as well. I imagine the best way to memorize them is to just get as much time either watching onboards or being on the simulator as possible. How do you kind of feel like that helped with, you went into it knowing I've, suffered from short-term memory problems. How do you think, like, almost how did you approach it knowing that, if that makes sense?
For me, a lot more time on the sim.
Mm.
I've also got some racing simulators at home that I can use, and obviously we've all got YouTube and things like that. So just constantly going over the track, remembering the layout, um, so that you know what corner's coming next and what you need to be doing, when you need to be braking, when you need to be off the brakes, when you need to turn in, etc., etc.
Amazing. I want to ask you about a few kind of, they're related to racing, but they're also not specifically racing. I wanted to ask you about your day job, which we spoke about briefly before we started recording, but most people just look at a racing driver and think that's what they do. You know what I mean? That's their job. But we know anyone who listens to this podcast probably will know that's not always the reality. And there's a lot of money involved in motorsport. There's a lot of, financial, pretty much every driver I've spoken to has spoken about how difficult financially motorsport is. And I know you work full time as well alongside it. Firstly, how do you kind of balance all of that? And secondly, what's your kind of personal journey and perspective with the more financial side of motorsport? Is it something you've struggled with, sponsorship wise, or anything like that? And how have you kind of overcome that to pursue it now?
Yeah, so my full-time job is assisting people with their rent, making sure that they don't fall into rent arrears, making sure that they're maximizing their income with benefits and things like that. That's for me, that's full time, like you say, 9 to 5. So balancing time on the sim and sponsorship and things like that is evenings and weekends for me. And with Team BRIT, they're not a charity. So every driver has to fund their own racing seat should they wish to race. And that's done through sponsorship. Sponsorship is something I'm looking for 2025. So if anyone is interested, please do feel free to get into contact with me. Without sponsorship, we are unable to race, and currently for 2025, I'm not able to race due to not having enough funding. So that is something I'm focusing on, every day, each week. Making sure I grow my social media network, whether that be on Instagram or LinkedIn, anything like that. Yeah, so that's definitely something I'm working on, every day. Whenever I get a free moment at work, like you say, in my lunch break, in the evenings, on the weekends, sending the presentations out is it's rewarding once you get someone who is interested, but it can also be very demoralizing of knowing that you need sponsorship to go racing. But some say it is the hardest part. Getting in the car and driving is the easy bit. Um, it's finding sponsors is very challenging, especially someone who's not had to experience this before. Um, but Team BRIT offers a lot. So we've got corporate karting days. There's an opportunity to be on the merchandise. So on the jackets, tops, on the truck, and on the HGV. Also on the car. Corporate karting days, networking days with other sponsors, hospitality at the tracks. So there are many opportunities for sponsors with us.
In terms of obviously, you have to put yourself out there a lot online, as you said, using social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, all of that. Is that something that comes naturally to you? Is it something you enjoy? Or is it one of those things where you're like, oh, it's a bit of a chore, but it's something I must do?
It's something I enjoy. It is something that I must admit, personally, I've never created a reel before, joining a racing team. You'd just post an unedited video online to show your mates where you're at, as far as my skills went, and maybe put a bit of music on it, and that's about it. So learning um, the art of making an interesting video, um, and making the social media, interesting to watch has probably been the most challenging bit. But it's enjoyable as well. You work hard on a video and then it gets X amount of views and, yeah, interactions and things like that is a rewarding part. And especially if then from that it catches someone's eye and then they message you that they could be interested in helping me on my journey. So that's the rewarding part. But it's something that's coming easier the more that I'm doing it. But like you say, we've all got to start somewhere. Um,
Absolutely. And I should say, all your socials are going to be linked in the description. So if anyone wants to go check them out, if anyone's interested in sponsoring you, they'll all be down there. I'll try and mention it again in the video if I remember.
Thank you very much.
No problem. I also wanted to ask you about this is another non-racing specific question, but you also competed in Britain's Strongest Disabled Man. I feel like I have to ask about this. Like I can't not ask about this, even though it's not specifically related to racing. I have to know more about this.
Yeah, so that all started, believe it or not, from a previous line of work I was in. They went to a strongman gym. And I was like, oh, okay. I've always, I always watch it on the TV every year at Christmas and all that sort of thing. And I thought, well, why not see if there's a way that I can join them? So I messaged them and I was like, is there a way that a disabled person can do it? And they said, believe it or not, there's even championships, which I never knew before joining the gym there. And they do British Disabled Strongman. So the events that you would see on the British Strongest Man, on the World's Strongest Man, they adapt in order so that disabled people can do them. So, Atlas stones that they would lift off from the floor and put on a platform. We're in a wheelchair and we've got a barrel one side of us and then another barrel this side of us, and the stone we've got to lift from this side to that side and things like that. So there's different classes. You've got a standing class, so people that have got a disability but can lift standing, and then others that can't. So I was in a seated category. And yeah, I competed probably 2015 to 2018, something like that. Then I stopped for a little while, and then I competed in another one probably about 2021. And then I haven't competed again since. It is something that's on the list maybe to do, but racing's definitely my priority. But it is fun. Disabled people are out there doing disabled strongman. Magnus for Magnuson that people may know, referees for them. And it is good fun. It is good fun. But people are very strong and dedicated. They've recently just finished the Worlds, I believe. So yeah, I still follow them. I still chat to some of the guys, and then turn up to a couple of competitions if I can, just to support them. But yeah, it's not something I'm in at the moment, but it is something that I've done in the past, and it was very enjoyable. I think one of the other things we pull trucks and things like that, so you'd be on the ground with a piece of rope around the truck. You got to pull it towards you as quickly as possible. And then I won a loading race. I know that much. So getting sandbags. So you're in a wheelchair. Getting sandbags and barrels from one side to another as quickly as possible was fun as well. But one of the only events I did win, but it was enjoyable nevertheless.
That's so cool. So, so cool. And I guess like overall, the purpose of Down to the Tire as a podcast is to encourage people to explore motorsport outside of kind of what you see in the mainstream on the TV a lot. Anything that's kind of outside of Formula One, really. Because I think there's so much to discover that people don't realize. usually I'll ask a driver kind of why viewers should tune into the series that they've raced in or the series that they're racing in. But I think here, kind of, I want to ask more like, why do you think people should start following Team Brit and taking notice of what you guys are doing? Because it's insane. And you've got, the team's got a great following, but I still don't think anywhere near enough people know about what you guys are doing.
Yeah, so we are the only currently we are the only disabled racing team in the world. So we are the only team of all disabled racing drivers. There are other disabled people racing out there, but we are the only team of all disabled racing drivers. Um, and they've been very successful in winning the Britcar Trophy Championship overall before. And obviously we've won again this year. They make their own hand controls, and they're always looking to improve them. So I think they're on version 9 now, maybe. Um, which is unique to them, and no other team is using them. Well, no other team is making something like Team Brit. But, they will. If you want them on your own car, then they will put them on there for you. But yeah, no other team is making controls like them. So they are very unique. That's why people should follow us. We are unique, but we're not trundling around at the back. We are showing everybody that just because you're disabled doesn't mean you can't compete in motorsport. And Team Brit's long-term goal is to be the first all-disabled racing team to race at the 24-hour Le Mans. So when Team Brit's ready to race there, I want to make sure that I'm part of that racing team.
I always ask people like, what's your dream, like either series to race in, car to drive? Everyone always says Le Mans. Is what everyone wants to do, right? Is that your answer as well? Le Mans is the dream.
Yeah, it's the pinnacle, isn't it, of endurance racing.
Yeah.
So definitely to race at Le Mans. Um, yeah, for sure.
Are there any other kind of cars that intrigue you that you'd like to give a go? Beyond Le Mans, is there anything? You know, it can be anything really, but yeah, anything
But
that you'd like to give a go.
yeah, I mean, for me, anything car related is a bit of me. Even if it is single seater, I'd give anything a go, to be honest. I just enjoy racing. I enjoy being competitive, and of course, we all enjoy winning. Um, if at the moment, obviously, I'm in a BMW 1 Series. My next stage with Team Brit, as and when I'm ready and there's availability, they've got a M240i. And then their top range car at the moment is a GT4 McLaren 570S. So I want to make sure that one day I can get myself in that car for sure, and prove how fast I can go. But yeah, our aim as a team is definitely to make sure that we're there at Le Mans.
Absolutely. That's a great list of dream cars to drive. And yeah, I'm already excited to see Team Brit at Le Mans. I can't wait.
Obviously, if any sponsors out there that would like to help us get there, please feel free to contact myself or the team. But yeah, that is definitely our goal.
Yeah, as I said, everything linked below. I'll link all of your socials, Dom, and then I'll also link Team Brit so everyone can go and check them out, give them a follow, offer to sponsor if you're in the position to do so. And yeah, thank you so much for coming on down to the tyre and sharing your story of what has been an amazing season for you. Everything you're doing is brilliant, and I really hope to see you on track next year at Donington. I'll be there in person to watch you race. So yeah, best of luck with getting sponsors and best of luck with your future in racing.
Thank you very much. We'll let you know when we're there.